classes. And these classes were also using the coach books at that time, which were the state granted books that, you know, we followed the standards and kind of broke them down by paper and pencil. So this is what we did. We piggybacked what we did in the regular classes with the academic support, and then we created this structure. And I'll let, we want to point this out because everybody who comes and sees us do centers think that that's all we do. And we don't. And it's really important to know we do have a multimodal approach. Everybody gets tired of things. I don't care how wonderful it is. And our students, and I'll bring them up and I'll let Mrs. Scott talk a little bit about the things that we do.
I'm sure that each one of you could come up with a list much, you know, almost very similar to this. All the things that we do in our class in addition to what we'll be showing you. We don't have, I mean, anytime you do something over and over and over, your kids are going to become bored with it. And the greatest thing about the stations or centers that we do is the kids are always excited because it happens maybe once a week, maybe twice a week as we get closer to state testing. But the rest of the time when we're teaching literature, when we're teaching, you know, our state curriculum, our district curriculum, we do project-based things just like you guys do, whether they're in groups or they're individual. It might be a computer project, it might be an art project connection with the literature, but they do projects. We do something called Dice Buddies, which is at some point every period they work with a partner. And as you all know, anytime you have up on the board or you say to your class you're going to be working with a partner, they stop listening to you and start saying, and they're not listening to instructions, they're not doing anything. So at the beginning of every 9 weeks, they pick 6 partners that will be their partner for the entire time. And before we do an activity, we roll the dice. Whatever number comes up, that's the partner you work with. I've heard it called clock buddies, where they have 12 partners that they get to choose from. Dice buddies, pick a hat buddy, but they have their partners picked already. And that's been extremely successful. So you have dice buddies, and they get to do a partner activity every day, whether it's discuss, whether it's complete a task and present as partners, but every day there is a point where we stop talking and they work together.
You know, can I just, one of the nicest things on here, Mrs. Scott created this, and I was just so happy when she did this, was the pyramid project. Anytime we have a lot of projects, we struggle to hit that higher learner too. And so what she started to do is to create, when we do projects, we create a pyramid-based project. The lower level projects, based on Bloom's taxonomy, would be, you know, your basic knowledge level. They're worth less points. And then as you move up on the pyramid, the projects on the top are worth more points. So your higher level students have options to do, you know, presentations, you know, research, things like that. And it has really, you know, but sometimes, you know, I say, you know, for the higher level learners, we have special education students who sometimes choose to do some of those higher level projects. And they may need some assistance, but that, in my eyes, has just really been raising the bar for them. So, you know, just the integration. And what has happened when, I mean, we went to Mr. Walter with this idea, and we have to give a lot of credit to him because he really supported us in everything that we decided to change. And in our district, change doesn't happen very easily. You know, now we're getting a lot more newer teachers, so it's been a little easier, but, you know, it really is a hard sell to change how people teach. And you probably all know that we are really set in our ways as teachers, and sometimes that's a difficult thing. But the students really, because of all of these different modes, started taking ownership of their learning, and that was really, really important to us.
Pyramid projects, they get to pick what they're doing. Everything is, the lower the pyramid piece, the lower the points, the easier the task. And then as you move up, the points move up. I actually got it from a state representative that came in from PA that was kind of going through our class and saying, you know, here's an easy way to do differentiation. She took a real easy 30-point model. You have 30 points on the top, 15 points, 10, 10, 10, and you have to complete 30 points. Whether that's, you know, all 3 of the easy projects or the big project, but you only have to do one, and kids get to choose and piece it together how they want. And it doesn't work for everything. It doesn't. You can't say, okay, here's a worksheet and you can do the first 3 sections or the whole thing. But it will work in some of the things that you do. We do short films, obviously computer-based activities. journaling, centers that we're going to talk about today, student presentation. We have students talk a lot in class. We have students teach a lot of times, especially if there's something that's review. And then, of course, we have teacher-directed large group instruction. You just can't get away from that.
Okay. This is basically, how we structure the center. Okay, and I'll pull all this over.
You have, picture an entire period that you have. Now, for us, it was 84 minutes is how we started. We moved up to 100. We're back to 84 next year. But there were times that I had to start it on a 50-minute day because not every day was long. But picture however much time you have in class. We start by presentation of the skill. What are we learning today? And I know that everyone has their little catch that they're doing. Some people call it their bell activity. Some people call it, your seat activity, whatever it is. But you have an introduction of skills. And on the best day, we have one skill, and every center is hitting that skill. Sometimes we have 5 centers and 5 skills that we're reviewing. But you have, obviously, the teaching component. Then we have our centers, which is timed, which we're going to talk about in depth today. And then that is an interactive, that's cooperation, that's small group rotation, all that behavior, cover up to 6 skills, bonus points, that all is centers. All those middle bullets are the center activities. Once they're done and they're completed, I, as a teacher, literally go around from center to center, pull a question off the wall, they get out a piece of paper, this is your test. Give me the answer, or I'll change the question. This was the skill you learned. Demonstrate this skill to me. This entire center is about figurative language. Give me an example of a simile on your paper. It can be it's 5 questions, 5 centers. It can be a 5-point test or a 10-point test, but that completes the circle. They taught it, they worked with it, they were assessed on it. Done. At the end of a period, on a great day, I have up to 200 points in the gradebook as work that they did. 10 points as a test, 5 points as a bell activity. They've completed all these points. The day is done. I have no paperwork. I have no grading, and I'm done. I mean, it takes me 2 seconds to put it all on the computer, and now they have 3 huge grades, and I have nothing to take home. I mean, you can't shake a stick at that. That's just wonderful.
We do have to add, though, originally created, we probably have close to 400 centers at this point. And we have them categorized by standard, and now, because we're so used to it, we have taken this literature that we read during the year, and we're starting to implement, and we have a little video that you'll get to see some of this. We start to implement those things into our story, like whatever books we read, we start to, piggyback those standards and say, what activity can we relate back to Tuck Everlasting, or whatever piece of literature we're doing at the time. You'll see some Telltale Heart on here, I think The Drummer Boy of Shiloh.
But here's how you create a center. One of the packets that you have says the Beatles. It's a separate packet. It says the Beatles on the very first cover. That is a center. What happens is you design a center, and you can start however you want. You have a worksheet that you feel like, okay, this is pretty basic. It's going to take them 5 minutes, and I'm just sort of reviewing a skill, and I'd like to make this more interesting. You have a literature unit that you'd like to review. This Beatles Center covers 5 different standards. And you'll actually see it explained in the video what each standard is. But it'll cover 5 different standards. So the first thing that you have to do is create it. And it might be, I'll be honest, something you found on a website and you copied and pasted into Word. Worksheet. Could be a worksheet that you've retyped, but you have to get it into Word. It has to be something that kids can see at like a 16 to 25 font. So once you create it, you type it into your Word document. We copy it onto cardstock, because once you create this, once you complete this cycle, it takes you about an hour to an hour and a half of your time, I'll be honest. So we have 400 centers. That's 400 hours that we've put into this over the last 3 or 4 years.
But when it's done, it's done.
Yeah, and that's why it's on cardstock. If you put it on cardstock, it's, we have an example of a center actually laid out as you walk out today. You'll see how sturdy they are. You put it on cardstock, you print it out, obviously, put it on cardstock, then we laminate it. Again, that preserves it. You'll be able to use it year after year. Kids will, because these get stuck up on the wall, they're magnetized, kids will start looking at them and thinking about them and like, what am I going to do? And you can see it flicking, and I mean, you should see us, we're like, we just made that! Don't do that! Don't do that! Don't do that! So, treat it with care, treat it with care. But they do. They're able to think about it. They're able to flick it in their hand. They're able to, move it around the board.